You better knock around. Yeah, do you know that song?
You better, hold on to something or you'll get knocked around.
I was actually referring to an old 60s song.
Oh,
Whether you like gold, silver, or bronze.
Silver.
Knock Around has the sunglasses you need to enjoy the summer games, road trips, and all your outdoor activities in between. They've been making high-quality shades that don't break the bank since 2005, and they've actually been our personal go-tos for years.
That's right, and with over 25 different frame styles. Think about that. That's 25 different frame styles.
I don't have 25 different faces.
Right? There's something for the whole family, including tons of kids' pairs. So, whether you're looking to rock some red, white, and blues for Team USA or a timeless pair for your backyard barbecue, Knock Around has you covered.
All their lenses have UV 400 protection, and with polarized adult pairs starting at $28, you can get a few pairs to leave in your car, toss in your beach bag, or lend to a friend in need.
Now, Dave, I just bought a new pair of Campagnons.
Oh, nice.
Rainbow on black, Dave, featuring their new Noctera Performance Lens Tech and rubberized adjustable nose grips.
John, those are amazing. They make you look like you were from the 80s and the future all at the same time, which would have been
Back to the Future.
There it is.
There we go. I knew you'd like them, Dave. Dadville fans, don't squint through this summer's festivities. Check out knockaround.com and use code DADVILLE15 for 15% off your order.
That's DADVILLE15 for 15% off your order at knockaround.com.
I forget lyrics often, but there was a time I took 3 attempts at the second verse of a song, and I was like, hold on, guys, I'm going to get it. And then I would come back and I said, hold on, I'm going to get it. 3 strikes. I was like, let's just go to the chorus. How about that? Let's just go straight to the chorus.
You just skipped right.
I just skipped it. And I was sweating because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe these people paid tickets and I'm forgetting the lyrics to these songs they love.
Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with Jake Scott.
John.
Yep.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure because I'm about to start.
Okay.
It's important to you and I
Yep.
that the supplements we take are of the highest quality. Am I right?
Oh,
and
my
that's why
gosh.
for many years we've
So
both
many
been
years.
drinking AG1,
AG1.
Aja Uno.
Tall glasses.
Unlike many supplement brands, AG1
Almost
is
all.
researched and developed by an in-house team of scientists. They aren't farming this out.
They're so in-house. It's crazy.
They built a lab for these guys so they could keep them there, so they could watch them. And it's scientists, it's doctors, it's nutritionists with decades of experience in their respective fields.
Oh, that's so right, Dave. It's so rare that you're right, but you're right. So many people have asked us about AG1. Is it the real deal,
Yeah.
they ask? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, trust me.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we've been doing it, and they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, quality for AG1 isn't just a buzzword,
Not just a buzzword.
okay? It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At each step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards.
Look, we know that we can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because they obsess over the product quality, the standards of manufacturing partners, the sustainable practices.
Taking care of our health shouldn't be complicated,
No.
John. And AG1 simplifies this by replacing multiple health supplements like vitamins, digestive aids, immune support, and more in just one simple scoop.
Well, and Dave,
Yeah.
AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support.
They have been supporting guts for years.
So many guts.
They're just so outspoken. We've partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high-quality product that we genuinely look forward to drinking every day.
So, if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1/Dadville.
That's drinkag1/Dadville. Check it out. Jake, you look like you're in the great wild West.
See, I was going to go with
I
Costa
am-
Rica. You look Costa Rican vibes.
I love that. I'm in a wild Costa Rican place called Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Oh.
I mean, Fayetteville's kind of the Costa Rica of the mid
Arkansas.
South. Is it?
Of
Yeah.
mid Arkansas.
I've been hearing that my whole life. I grew up here,
Yeah.
very Costa Rica.
If you had a
vibes.
nickel
Is
for
it
every
still on
time.
y'all's license plates?
No.
Ah.
Wait, the Costa Rica, yes. It's just
The Costa Rica of
yeah.
Central Arkansas.
John, I haven't seen you. Do you remember when we wrote a song together? Like, I don't know, 8 years ago. You probably don't even remember this. Yeah. I remember this because it was a day I was very newly engaged, and I had just gotten in this huge fight with my now wife of 8 years and mother of my 2 children. And she basically told me like she wasn't sure she wanted to marry me.
Just that little nugget.
Yeah, right. And I'm in Nashville, and I'm like super stressed. And I walk in to see you like 3 minutes after I got off the call, and I was like, "Bro, I feel really stressed." And you were like, "Okay, like let's talk about it." And you were so like gracious and
No,
like,
he was a good person to be there in that
you
moment.
took care of me. We wrote a song that will never see the light of day called "Punching Bag," and it's like I was just a therapy session for me. It was like, I'll be your punching bag.
I
if
do
that's what you
remember
need.
that. I remember that song.
And then-
Sorry, I only remember the art. I never.
I don't remember the time. I remember the product. I'm all about results here.
That is amazing.
Oh, okay. I
Jake,
forgot about that.
It is. It actually surprises me that John doesn't like. John has got a steel trap for a memory, and so it must have been so traumatic for him that day, seeing you suffer, that he was like, I don't.
It was a
remember
very
that kind
forgettable
of pain.
day.
No, you know,
Yeah.
I do have I have a terrible memory in some areas of life. I have a great memory when it comes to live shows that I've played.
Yeah,
But I have a terrible memory when it comes to co-writes. Seriously.
really.
Yeah.
We've written numerous times, Jake, and he still
No,
forgets
we
my name.
haven't. I don't have a single
Yeah.
memory of it.
Yeah,
Those
it's
things.
never happened.
And you know, don't you love? Sorry, last thought. Don't you love those moments where you come in and it's like that person, and while you're talking, they're like kind of writing things down. And you're like, and they're like, no, keep going. I'm like, oh, I love that. And then like and then it kind of the conversation kind of finishes, and like, you said a couple things. Like one thing was like punching bag, and then you also said like, I can't live without. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of cool. I don't know. That space is
See,
kind of
that-
cool. Yeah. And then immediately,
I'm not
it's
exploiting your pain here, but
No,
I'm just
I'm like,
I'm
well, it's what
all
you just
about
did
that. I think that's great. The tough thing is when that scenario's happening and you're talking and you're like, I can see them typing. And you're like, this is great because if they're going to do the work, I'll just keep typing. And then
I'll just
and then
keep
you hear
talking.
that email send sound, and you're like, oh, they
my
were just
gosh.
working on an email the whole
Sweet.
time.
One
Thanks,
of
man.
my favorite. All right, last thing. This is the last. Like insider baseball. One of my favorite stories is a buddy of mine said he was playing. I laugh about this story so much. He said he was playing with this guy, or he was writing with this guy, and he'd never written with him before. And he's sitting with a guitar, and so the guy's at his rig, but it's like facing him, so he can't see the computer. You know what I mean? So he's like on the other side, and he's kind of playing. The guy's kind of sitting there, and he's like typing, and he's like, "Oh, dude," he's like already writing lyrics. He's kind of singing this melody, and he's like, "Dude, this thing is taking off." And he said, literally, as he gets done, he's like, "Cool," and he just hears for the email, and the guy had forgotten his speakers were on, and John just said he looked across, and I was just like staring.
That's so great.
I just love those stories.
It's like, oh man.
Like, whoops. Jake, we are so excited to have you on. I want to start by saying this. We've spent some time together, but you're on my list of people that I feel like if we spent any more time together, we would be fast friends. And I like you so much. Like all the time we hang, I'm always like, gosh, I just really like him. And so I'm glad that we're hanging today because I bumped into you like a couple weeks ago here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And gosh, it's just I really enjoy hanging out. You're good people, and so it was so fun because I was like, we should have him on Dadville, and especially, I mean, for any reason. But I think as you just started by saying, you just had this monstrous move, which I want to talk about because I think this is so cool and fascinating, and it looks like you're on the set of Davy Crockett, which is exciting, and I want to know all about that.
Yeah.
But so what we do when we start our Dadvilles off is we give a little bit of the background, the brag sheets we call it. So here's Jake. This is your life. All right, originally from Fayetteville, Arkansas, which now back
Go
like
Hogs.
a boomerang. Go Hogs. Go Hogs. Okay, first EP of Life and Love and Longing. I'm not John. I think you'd agree with me. I think that's one of the better first album names I've ever heard. That is really cool. Of Life
Let's
and
go.
Love and Longing, because you got the alliteration. It's long. I'm a big fan of I love long. I don't like emo long titles, where it's like 4 sentences. But I've always been into long album titles, long, titles of songs on them. That was 2013.
100%. Yeah.
2018 to December 20th, he released a song a month. I think that's so cool. So cool. Tuesdays, which is a bop. John and I were revisiting that this morning. 50 million streams, which is just bananas. First album, Golden Boy, was released in 2021. Collaborated with Russell Dickerson, actually another Dadville alum.
That's right.
Oh, let's go.
We love old Russie.
Come on, RD.
On She Likes It, which has over 120 million streams and was a top 15 country hit, which is awesome on country radio. So, Jake, I always love asking this question. Knowing what you've achieved, all these listeners on Spotify, these tours, I was looking at your Instagram and the House of Blues, Chicago. I mean, how that shot is so great. Packed. Everybody's just having a blast.
Insane.
If I could time travel back to 15-year-old Jake Scott, and I say, Jake, listen, I'm from the future, and I want to tell you, this is what you've achieved up to this point. What does 15-year-old JS do? How does he respond if I tell him that?
Wow. Well, one, thank you for that intro. That was amazing. Two, I think 15-year-old me genuinely would not believe it, because especially at that point, John Mayer was my icon. If I could take my skin off and put his on, I would have done it. He was everything to me. I wanted to be him, and I was a drummer for a long time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how I got started. And I started playing drums in my garage, and then started playing with friends, and then started playing in church, and that was kind of where I learned how it all worked. And then I heard John Mayer, heard Continuum for the first time, and I sold the drums. Bought a guitar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a huge existential moment for me. But then I was so heartbroken because within weeks I was I'll never play the guitar like John Mayer can play the guitar.
Yeah.
So this is just it's never going to happen for me. But then through falling in love with him and the singer, honestly, both of you, I was big fans of both of you. So I'm honored to be here. 15-year-old me wouldn't believe that this
then
is
you
happening.
heard my music and you're like, no, I can keep playing.
Just keep selling
this.
instruments.
that I could do.
I bought a ukulele. And then I heard Jake, whatever his name is, and then I sold the ukulele. The pawn shop guy's
man.
you know what you should try? Violin. Cello.
I know a guy. Anyway, but yeah, man, I think I became a big fan of the songwriting itself, and I was just a huge lover of that, and I never thought I could actually do it, and I was so scared to try to write a song because I didn't want to be bad at it. So it was this thing where I kept it in the shadows of I'm not going to let myself try because I don't want to be disappointed. So it'll live in my head as this, fantasy. And then I finally worked up the courage when I was about to graduate college. I was 20, turning 21.
It was that long.
Yeah, it was a solid.
Jeez. So it's kind of like a
5-6 years.
A secret little thing you messed around with.
Yeah, but I kind of got it out of my system in playing at church. I was always the guy, the worship leader in church, and I was kind of known for that in a way of oh yeah, Jake sings at church. It's he's the guy who plays guitar. But that was the extent of it, Okay. And so it kind of scratched a little bit of that itch. And then I remember my junior year of college. I went to ACL festival. I mean, y'all both know that festival. Yeah. So I went to that festival with some friends, and I saw the Avett brothers do their thing. And there's this, y'all know Ben Howard, the artist?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible. But for whatever reason, when I saw him up there, and he was 2 years older than me, I was like, man, that's what I want to do. I gotta do this. And
what were you? Side question: what were you doing in college? What were you studying in college? What did you think you were going to do?
I had no clue,
okay.
But my major, my wife makes fun of me for this all the time because I give 6 different answers every time, but it was a journalism major with an emphasis in advertising and PR.
Oh, wow.
And I had a minor in marketing. So it sounds like a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But that's what it was.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with music at all.
Okay. And you're not like playing out. You're not like doing coffee shops. You're just doing the worship leader thing.
Just doing the worship leader thing. That was it. I had never written a song at that point.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. I wrote my first song when I got back from that festival. It was fall of my junior year of college. I was right about to turn 21. And the first time I wrote a song and I liked it, and I was like, oh, this isn't terrible. I was like, this is all I ever want to do.
Wow.
Now, then you are met with the reality of like, there's probably no way I can ever do this forever, but like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
two, like, I mean, because you're at Arkansas then, right? At school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Hogs.
So, this is like a fun little game.
It's
where every
coming
time we
back.
say it, you can't help but say that. That's not a place where you're gonna have like in your periphery. You're not seeing a bunch of like bands and artists and like, local music. And I think like that's always something that I'm so fascinated by when we talk to our musician friends. It's like it's a very different thing if you're going to Belmont and doing that than it is going to Arkansas. Or like for me, MTSU, which you would think even 20 miles away from Nashville would have it, but there really wasn't happening. And so it would be easy to think like you did, like, oh, I can't do this. There's
100%.
Nobody does that here.
Yeah, but bro, I'm not joking. You two were, because I was such a Ben Rector fan. He came out of the U of A. He came out of Arkansas.
Was he? So y'all missed each other though, right?
Yeah, he was a few years older than me, but he was the only singer-songwriter that I had seen come out of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and go on to do it. And then y'all were obviously his homies, and y'all were all in the same orbit. And so I was like, oh, Dave and John and all these guys are doing it. They're going for it. Like, maybe there's someone I can get connected to get me connected to Ben, who then I could finally like do this thing. And when I started writing songs, it's such a long story, but essentially one of my best friends started dating a girl from Nashville. Her dad owned a studio in Franklin.
Oh, wow.
And he came to town one day and asked me to play a song for him. And I was like, yeah, I'll play you a song one day. And he was like, no, right now. Here's a guitar. So I was like, all right, cool. And so I played him a song. And I was terrified. And he was like, hey, man, you can use my studio for free anytime you want. And I was like, okay, cool. So about 6 months later, I came to Nashville, made an EP, and then that EP, I honestly didn't think anything was going to happen with it, but that EP was what kind of opened the door for me. It got like in the iTunes top 5 on like the singer-songwriter chart, and it got in the Billboard like Heat Seeker charts or whatever, and all of a sudden I was like having these record labels and people like hitting me up. And
what year is that?
This was 2013 when I released that Of Life and Love and Long in that EP. And it was just this whirlwind of like, oh, wow, like maybe I should try to go for this. Because at the time, I had a job offer to go be a worship leader at a church in Memphis.
Oh, wow.
Super random. I'm giving y'all way too many details. But like, I was like, oh, well, if I'm that close to Nashville, maybe I can kind of like moonlight during the weeks, and I can go to Nashville and like write a song or two and then come back and do the Memphis job. And then that EP started catching some traction, and I got connected to this guy named David Hodges, who's like a really, Hodges.
Oh, yeah.
And he's big, super successful songwriter, producer, and he was living in LA at the time. We got connected.
Is that through Arkansas roots?
By happenstance, yes, but it wasn't like I never knew anyone he was connected to. We both got connected by this random family friend of mine named Steve Graves. I don't know if either of y'all know who that is.
I know that name. Okay.
Anyway, he's an old family friend. He met Hodges at a conference like years prior to this.
So David, for context for people who are listening, was was one of the original members of Evanescence. Wrote their big songs while he was in the band. Ironically, left right as they were like about to explode, and then went on to write, a lot of songs. Like what's her
1,000 Years, Christina Perri. What's it called? Because of You by Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, I mean, big
huge songs.
Big songs. Yeah, and from Arkansas. So he would,
and from Little Rock, Arkansas. Another Go Hogs.
There we go.
That's 3 so far. Let's see how many I can get. But I got connected to him, and he was like, hey, man, people send me music all the time, and 90% of the time it's terrible, and I never, even respond. But I listened to your EP, and like, I think you actually are a good songwriter, and I'd love to write a song with you one day. And I was like, okay, cool. So he was like, so can you come to LA next month and we can try? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. So I flew out to LA. We wrote a couple songs, hit it off.
So was that
And then
your
he was like-
first experience with like co-writing with somebody?
This is my first co-write was him,
Wow.
which was insane.
How did you feel about it?
And in LA too.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole. It's big. It's big. It's like, whoa, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Dude, I felt, I was like, I flew in and there was like, I was in, not like a super cool part of town because like my hotel was cheap and I was like, but every building I looked at, I was like, oh man, I bet like everything happens there. I bet that is the building where all of the big stuff
I don't
goes
know
down.
if you can describe more appropriately how I think all of us feel when you go to LA or New York. Like still, as a 46-year-old man, I walk around in LA, I'm like, I bet that's where they shot Wayne's World.
That's it. That's
Or like
the place.
you just name it, and they're like, "No, Dave, like that's not, did Frank Sinatra live here? No, it's just
Probably.
a house. There's
yeah, had to be though. But now that I've lived in LA for a decade, I know that building was absolutely not anything. So yeah, that was my first experience, and it was insane. Like I walked into his studio, and there's like hundreds of plaques on the wall, and there's 2 Grammys sitting right there, and I was like, oh wow, I don't realize. Like, I don't think I know where I am right now. Like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And, but he was super, like, welcoming to me. And the whole process was just so, I don't know. Like, y'all do it. It was just this magical thing of kind of like, oh, man, like, I want to do this forever if I can.
John,
Should we go? Should we start?
I just started.
Oh, you started?
Yeah, you actually interrupted. John, a question for you. I can't believe it's taken me this long to ask you this.
Okay, ask it.
What kind of craft coffee person are you? And please be honest.
Okay, are you talking like a classic or contemporary or avant-garde?
Yeah.
Dave, that's like asking me which one of my children is my favorite.
I would never ask
Which
that.
you always ask me that.
Oh.
Simply cannot be done. I love them all. Okay? Thankfully, Methodical Coffee has all 3.
This is one thing we can agree on, John.
Yeah.
Methodical coffee is the best. It has craft coffee and tea for people of all kinds.
Oh my
roasted,
gosh.
blended, brewed, served,
served.
and perfected by verified coffee and tea aficionados like Yanni
me.
McLaughlin.
That's right. And Methodical has resolved the headache of having too little, or too much, slightly less, from your traditional time-based coffee subscription. With Methodical, you can subscribe by usage. We're living in the future,
That's
guys.
right. Receive a free smart scale that tracks your coffee consumption and triggers your next order right at the perfect time. So you always have just the right amount of coffee on hand. Worry-free.
Best part is you can receive 20% off your first bag and 10% off all subsequent bags. Those are all the bags after the first one.
Yeah.
With no code needed when you try the free smart scale.
John, as you know, we also have our very own Dadville.
Yeah, we do. Hey, people want to hear it?
I would
Hang
love
on.
that.
Ready?
Give 'em a little, yep.
That sounds like Dadville.
It does. It's filled with hints of what, John?
You got your... Hang on.
Okay.
There's some chocolate in there.
Okay.
Some graham.
Yep.
And hitting the back of my palate right now is the brown sugar.
That's right. And it gets us going every morning.
Every morning. Methodical's on a mission to connect people to the beauty of life through coffee experiences for people like you. That's right, listener.
Yep.
You. Methodical has been roasting and hosting since 2015.
On their site, you'll also find brew guides that'll teach you how to turn your coffee brewing chore into a beloved ritual.
It's a ritual.
Receive 20% off your first bag and 10% off subsequent bags. John already said it. It's just the bags after that. No code needed, guys.
Craft a cup you'll love with Methodical Coffee.
John.
Dave.
Hello, John.
Oh, that is really funny. I need to explain to the listener why that's hilarious.
Okay.
Because we're talking about Hello Bello here.
Oh, yes.
All right? Now listen, they say it takes a village to raise a baby, which is why delegation is key.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So why not delegate the task of securing diapers, wipes, and more to Hello Bello?
That's right. I think it's a great move, John. Also, sidebar.
Yeah.
It takes a baby to raise a village, too. And that's RAZE. But I'm going to digress. Hello Bello believes all families deserve premium, affordable baby products. And with
too.
their ultra
Same.
convenient diaper bundle subscription, which includes 7 packs of diapers and
That's
4
almost
packs of
8
plant-based
packs.
wipes, you'll never run out of supplies, even when your baby's got the runs.
Come on now.
Sounds good.
Named Best Diaper Subscription by New York Magazine, and winner of the 2022 Good Housekeeping Parenting Award. I'm so excited I can barely read it. Hello Bello will keep you stocked on diapers and wipes.
That's right, John. And what if I was going to tell you this, John? Okay.
Say
What
it.
if I told you I was the type of person who said I would only get a subscription to Hello Bello if it was shipped in an upcycled box that conveniently turned into a play toy for my baby?
Well, Dave, I'd say you better pull up hellobello.com because that's exactly
That's
how
right.
your Hello Bello subscription arrives each month.
Amazing. I love it. Tell me how to sign up.
I was going to before you interrupted me there. Now go to hellobello.com/dadville to get 30% off. You heard me right. 30% off your first customized bundle and a full-size freebie product of your choice.
That's right, guys. That's right. That's how much they love you. That's hellobello.com/dadville to start bundling with 30% off your first order.
And don't forget, that's hellobello.com/dadville.
Well, co-writing is interesting because it's like, as the three of us know, you have days where like magic happens, and then you have many days where, you know, it's kind of more of a grind, and maybe you know, 3/4 the way through, you're like, we're getting a really well-crafted song that no one's ever going to hear. So whenever you
We're
have
working
those,
very hard on nothing.
whenever you have those co-writes where it's like, this actually means something. Like, if this goes well, then X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z. Those are always so tricky because it's like you just never know what is going to happen on any given day. You know, for that to be your
Yeah.
first one, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it was wild. And he literally, like, I think the next day, because I stayed for like 3 days. We wrote 2 songs. And he was like, hey, I'm starting a publishing company. I'd love to offer you a publishing deal. And he was like, you know, I want to help develop you as an artist and like kind of make your next album with you. But I also think you could write songs for other people from time to time, like I do. And I want to kind of give you the opportunity to try to do that. And I was like, okay, cool. What's a publishing deal? And he kind of just like took me under his wing and was like, cool, like you should move to LA when you graduate in 6 months. You can work in my studio and we'll just go from there.
He's
And
like,
so that's literally
do
what
you
happened.
have a journalism degree? Okay, great. That's great because that's
Is
What's
there
the
any
emphasis?
marketing in
At
any of the
PR?
things you majored or minored in? Is marketing one of them? That's all I need to know of the 4.
That's it, man. Oh no. But like, yeah, it was just a crazy experience, man. And I guess to get back to your initial question so far back was what would 15-year-old me say was like, that is why it felt so unbelievable, like fantastical.
Yeah.
Like this isn't actually going to happen. Like none of these pieces are going to fall into place for me to actually be able to make a career out of this.
yeah.
Well, one of my favorite things about it, and I don't know if it's because my story and it's John's story too, but I just love when, because I think it really speaks to just the God-given talent in each of us. But when you grow up in a place that's so far off of the musical grid, you know what I mean? Like there's no context. I mean, John hears me say this all the time. When we have our friends on that do music that grew up like we did, the 3 of us, wherever it is in the States. But like, you know, when there's just no context for musicality, there's just like, yeah, like, you know, nobody, you know, like, I mean, growing up in small town Mississippi, I don't think I knew 2 people that played an instrument, like a rock and like drum
Yeah.
set and like that. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever because it was like, and then it's just so cool to me when, you know, then you grow up to do it because you can just see how God sort of orchestrated all these crazy things. And you look back now, like to your point about the 15, but I think especially I'm so compelled by those stories that are like, oh yeah, I grew up in this random town and had no context
Yeah.
to this. And here I am,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, man. And like, you know, I think when people ask me about it, because like you know, now working in the music industry, as y'all know, like you meet people who it's like, yeah, I've known I wanted to do this
Yeah.
since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
That's all I've cared about. And that just wasn't my story. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that I wanted to do this like for real until I was about to graduate college. And
Yeah.
like I had no North Star outside of, you know, like I said, Ben Rector was the only guy in town that I even saw even try to go for it. And And so like growing up here, it was just kind of like, I didn't have any concept of what the music industry was. I was like, if this person is singing this song and it's famous, then they obviously wrote it themselves, recorded it themselves, and they're doing everything by themselves. And that's just how it works. I didn't realize there's this industry of like people are writers and people are producers and there's agents and managers and all this stuff. And so it's like, growing up without exposure to that does definitely, it's definitely a hurdle to jump over, but like, there is something special to kind of like the naive hope you have when you grow up in a town like this, where it's like, I could be a star.
I think it's one of the most important elements, honestly, in those early years. Like that naivete is like, that can get you a long way. But I did want to ask about, like, you mentioned that for years you were enamored with John Mayer and his songwriting and Continuum and all that, but for years you didn't even attempt to write a song. Yeah. What was that about? And is there holdover from that? Is that still sort of like is there like a hurdle that you have to get over to create these days?
Yeah, good question. I think at the time, I keep referencing him, but I had heard that John Mayer, the first song he ever wrote was No Such Thing, which was like a hit,
right? Right.
And I was like, well, if my first song's not a hit, then I can't ever be him,
right?
And so I would sit down and like start like humming a melody or something, like, no, it's not good, it's not good. And so I just like put it away. I was like, I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's not the day. It's not gonna be a hit. And then I really let it go, I think, for, like the better part of like 5 years or so, because I kind of just settled into this like, music is just kind of like this passion that I have on the side. But like, I didn't even have the foresight to be like, I'm putting this to the side. It was just like this unconscious realization that it's just not going to happen. So I'm not really going to put myself out there. And it wasn't until I actually heard, again, John Mayer on an interview say, like, you'll never write a good song until you can get through some bad songs. You have to write bad songs in order to get to the good. We all know that.
You were like, I can do that.
I was like, baby, sign me up. And so that was when I was like, okay, I just got to go for it, and it's going to suck, but I'll eventually hopefully get better. And I think that finally getting the courage to be, to swing and miss, to be bad at it, and not come out the gate with this like heroic story of like, it was the best song ever and it was first try. Yeah. I still, to answer the question of like, now I still have this ego thing that I have to check all the time of like, I am obsessed with this story of like, I wrote this song when I was in this space, and like in the first 15 minutes, it just dumped out of me and it was perfect. And now it's a global hit and everyone knows it. Cause you hear that story all the time from people, but it's like, I have to kind of, it's hard for me to accept the reality of like, today might be a tough day and I might not get anything and I might work really hard and ultimately have nothing to show for it, and that's okay. Like, that doesn't mean I'm worthless. That doesn't mean my life has no meaning and I am a joke of a musician. It's like even my heroes have days where they suck, you know, and like,
it's funny, and John and I talk about this too, but I think the longer you do it, it's more like that than the other. I think those beginning years, you have your lightning strike songs, and you, oh my God, I was picking up my pizza, and I had this melody, and then in the car, I'd written the first verse and chorus. I think that is pretty. It's not completely relegated to your younger years, but it's pretty much relegated. I mean, in mass, you still do it. I mean, every now and then I'll do that in my 40s, but it's not much. And so I think there's also something to the journey that, when you've done anything a lot, you just have higher expectations for how you want it to go. And so I think some of what's so fun about the beginning years of writing songs is that you're just not in your own way. because it's so new. You're just like, everything is cool. Every chord progression is the coolest chord.
Everything sounds amazing because it's the first
So good.
time. Yeah.
That reverb, it's like
killing,
absolutely
bro.
drenching everything. Yes.
So I think, I feel that. I feel that so much now. I mean, John and I talk about this all the time, but, it's just like, I think as we do it more, it's just really hard to be excited about something because you've done it a lot. So that chord progression, and so I think that's just built in it. What I was going to say, one of the things that I love about the way that you've made music is that I feel like you were one of those artists that I remember meeting you. David had told me about you a few times. Then I know we had that lunch. I don't know if you remember that lunch we had like years ago with a bunch of other dudes, and we went to somewhere in East Nashville or something. And it was, I think, the first time we met.
Yes. No. I think we went to that Indian restaurant.
That's right.
Yeah. And just to circle back to your intro, I remember being at that, and I was like, I wish I could be friends with Dave. He's so cool. He's so funny. But like, we were always like, I was always Hodge's friend, and so it was like we were never at. And so I was like, one
Hodge's
day,
always
one day I'm going to
protected you
get
from
there.
me. I would try to get you.
Like,
And he's like, no,
don't talk to this guy.
No. He's not
too
ready
young,
yet.
Dave.
It's not ready.
But like, I think something I've always admired about what you did, and it seems like you really figured out pretty quickly. And John and I were actually talking about this as we were prepping. We spent 6 or 7 hours over 3 days prepping. And on the second session of that, we were just talking about. I was telling John, like, I just feel like when I've thought about you over these last few years, I'm like, it feels like Jake has figured out the sort of like Spotify world. Like, he's like, I would always look at you and be like, gosh, I really envy how intentional and focused you've been on releasing music consistently and sort of like knowing when to do it and how to do that. And and so I'm curious with the record you released, because you released that a few years ago, the first thing. When was it like? What was the switch that went from like, all right, we're just going to keep doing the singles thing and just sort of building into something, and then that sort of movement between the two?
Yeah. I mean, originally the singles thing was kind of this idea that I had having, because for about 3 years, all I did was write and produce for other artists.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I moved to LA off of my own EP, and then because I had so much to learn, I was so green. Like, I had only written probably 10 songs total the day I moved to LA.
Wow.
Maybe I don't know, 15, something like that. But I get there, and I was looking at Hodges, and I was like, I have so much to learn. Can I intern at your studio first, like before I do anything else? Because I just want to learn how to produce a song, how to write a song. I know nothing. And so he was like, yeah, sure. So I was an intern at his studio for about 6 months before I officially got offered my publishing deal. And then at a certain point, after he had like let me be the guy like finishing his demos, like he would get it to like 40-50%. He'd be like, hey, go finish this.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I got to like really learn the hard way of like, okay, here's how you produce a song, here's how you don't produce a song. And having him be kind of like, that sucks, don't do that, here's how you do this, here's how you make this sound like this. It expedited my learning curve on the production side a ton, because I had a Grammy winning producer right next door. And he gave me a room in his studio, gave me a publishing deal, and then I had a full writing schedule from that time on. And so I was writing for other people 5 days a week. I was usually the producer in the room just by default. And so about a year and a half into that, I was kind of like, this is awesome. I've learned a ton, but I haven't written a song for myself in almost 2 years. Like, this ultimately isn't like the dream. The dream is to be an artist myself. And what I had learned from writing for all these other up-and-coming artists was like, they all waited way too long to release a song. Like, we had this song, we were all excited about it, their team was excited about it, their label was excited about it, and they were like, sweet, let's wait 6 months and then we'll put this song out. And I was like, why? Like, we could put it on SoundCloud tomorrow and like see how people like it. And that was continually the mistake that I kept seeing my friends make. And they were always heartbroken by it, because they'd spend all this money on a music video, on a rollout plan, on this marketing strategy. And it's like, ultimately, like, when you're that early on, that stuff's all going to be kind of a waste of time, because nobody knows who you are yet. And so you need to build up awareness of you before you start investing all this money into your music or your videos or the content around it, because at first you have to build this thing before anyone really cares. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing my own music. And instead of releasing 12 songs like an album at one time that I'll spend a year working on, and then I'll drop it and people will listen to it for like 2 days, and really one or two of the songs will kind of be the focus, and then the rest of them will just kind of fall to the wayside. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing that, why don't I release 12 songs over the course of 12 months? Give each song at least a chance to have a moment in the spotlight. And then in the meantime, as I'm rolling out these songs, I can be working on 12 more songs and then just keep that ball rolling as long as it takes. And that was really the like the beginning of that idea. It wasn't some like master plan of like, this is what I'm going to do. I was just kind of like accepting the reality of like, I'm not famous. Nobody knows who I am. And so probably no one's going to listen to these songs at first, but hopefully eventually it will start to snowball enough to where people will care. And then, you know, the song I release 2 years from now, people will find and then go back and listen to the song I just released, and it will feel like it's brand new to them. And so, you know, it's always this kind of like rediscovery thing. And I only intended to do it for 1 year, and then it just was going well enough to where I was like, I guess I'll do it again. So I did it for another year, and then the growth at the end of the second year, the growth was exponential enough to where I was like, okay, well, I got to do this another year. And then, but the whole time I was like, the singles are fun and this is really cool and I can move really fast because, you know, when I was writing and producing for other people, you know, we were turning around a song every day. Like we had to. And so I was like, I know that I can get the music done in the amount of time it takes for me to release this, you know, but I got into this like schedule to where I was writing and producing and releasing the song in the same month that I was like, I wasn't prepped. It was very tight. I had a 10-day window to start writing the song to when I had to submit it to Spotify. So you're crazy.
Producing all this yourself?
Yeah. At the time I was producing, I would say 90% of it myself. Some of it I was working with a good friend of mine named Josh Kerr, who I know y'all know him. And he's a legend. But so we were co-producing some of the stuff. And, but most of it I was just like, okay, I've just got to move really fast. And at first I was mixing it too. Like it was crazy times. But then it eventually got to the point where I was like, man, I really want to make like an album. Like I miss this idea that like all the songs can kind of like tie into each other and I can like go into a cave and like obsess over it, you know, and perfect it rather than just be like, well, I don't have any more time. It's got to be good enough. So here it goes.
Yeah.
And so then I made an EP called Golden Boy that I released in 2021. And right after that, I actually signed a record deal with Elektra Records, who I'm with currently. And we actually just put out my first proper full-length album in October of last year, 2023. So, and that was called Lavender. And it was, I think the difference for me creatively was like the album approach was really hard for me to shift into mentally, because it was like I was so used to just running and gunning and be like, cool, it's done, move. To then with an album, it was kind of like I had to write a surplus of songs to then pick the best ones. And I got out of the practice of doing that. Like basically it got to the point where if I was finishing a song, it was because I was going to release it. And the ones that I didn't think were going to make it, I just didn't spend the time on it. You know, I was just like, cool, that's an idea that can kind of go in the back burner.
Well, you know what's so funny too is that John and I have been talking about this a lot. Me and Wirtz. I mean, I feel like a lot of in Rector, honestly, like it feels like everything. Like a lot of us who grew up doing the albums, we're doing the exact opposite shift, which is the water you've been swimming in. You know, it's like kind of write a song, turn it around. But I mean, John is doing that with these summer covers he's doing right now. Like, you know, he's been releasing them a week or two later after he records them. You know, and it's like pretty much a live vocal piano thing. And so it's funny because for those of us who kind of came up in that world, we're like, this is how you make music, is you disappear and you write 25 songs and you pick the best 12 and you slave over them, and you know, and it's funny because all of the intel that I'm getting these days when I talk to my friends who are doing, you know, what you've been doing for a long time, is it's literally diametrically opposed. It's like, it's not about that. It's actually about like, write a song you love, make it sound great, put it out. Write a song you love, make it sound great. And it's just, it's crazy. And the only reason I bring that up is because of exactly what you said, how much of a brain tweak it is. Like I have to, it's literally, it's just, I have to like, okay, forget what you've learned. Think of it this way. And so it's funny though, because that's what you've been doing. And obviously it's been working. And I think some of the rest of us are kind of like, oh yeah, okay, but I just have to learn how to think like that, because it's just not how you came up. You know, it's like you sort of think of it one way, and so when you're gathering songs, this song makes sense with that song.
Yeah.
That's why it's track 2,
Yeah.
and then you have 7, and then 1 is great because it sets up 6 down later. You know, and where now it's like that's just not how people tend to listen to most music anymore. Which is still fine and fun, but it's like a total mind tweak. You know,
It is, yeah, and it's kind of heartbreaking being a guy who grew up on albums like that, you know, like in like consumed albums like that, to now realize that like, unless you're like Taylor Swift level famous,
Yeah.
like even people who are huge artists
yeah,
can't get people to listen to an entire album. But when you're like, you know, the biggest artist in the world, people will sit down and listen to 16 songs in a row because you've earned that. But like,
yeah, that's right.
the demographic for that is like tiny.
But it is true, like, yeah, like even of that group, let's say Taylor Swift, like how many are
Actually,
what's the percentage of her fans, her millions of fans, who are actually like turn the lights down, putting the album on,
Yeah.
and front to back listening to it?
Yeah. And
I
like,
didn't know where that was going. I just turn the lights down and put the album. I was like, keep
Well,
going.
it can go a lot of different
Could've
ways
gone-
where the music
You
takes
can go
you.
to sleep, honestly.
but like, I don't remember other than a couple artists in the last couple of years. I don't remember the last time I've sat down, like you just said, and listened
Yeah.
top to bottom.
Mhm.
And that is heartbreaking as an artist, because like, even as a consumer, I don't do that. So like, why
Yeah,
would I
true.
expect people to do it that way for me?
Once I realized that about my life, I got a lot more gracious, because I really lamented that with fans. I was like, making these records, why is it? And then I was like, dude, you know, barring a 40-minute drive that you have,
Right.
where you can put on an album, you don't do that. And I was
Yeah.
like, God, it's true. I guess that's true. So I do have grace for it. So something I really want to, I want to hear you talk about, because this is so fascinating. It was so fun hearing this when we saw each other last time. Is so you've made this move. You've packed up. You've dominated LA. You left your
Yeah,
stamp
sure.
on it. And you
Conquered
you
it.
said, you conquered it. That's what. Listen, that's the postcards I'm getting from California.
There's
is that
lots
it
of
has
them.
been conquered by Jake Scott.
Yeah.
But now, literally, as of you said, you know, what, 5 days ago,
Yeah.
you guys are back. The family is back in Arkansas. So
Yeah.
please, like, walk me through this. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah, man, it's the wildest thing. I've lived in LA for 10 years,
Yep.
and my wife's been there for 12 years. We met in LA, got married in LA. She's from Dallas, so neither of us are like born and raised LA. But we both moved out there, chasing a dream. I was in music. She's a screenwriter and an actress, and so we were like the typical cliche LA couple. And you know, and we've loved living there, and it's been so amazing for the last 10 years. We have such a great community there, and so many fun things we've had, like in our, you know, our life has been there. But then at the end of last year, we just started feeling this like change is coming kind of a thing.
Wow.
Well,
Because your kids are how old?
yeah, so we have my daughter who will be 3 in August, so she's 2.5 right now.
Okay.
And my son is just past 1, so he's
Okay,
14
okay,
months.
Okay.
And when he was born, that's when things got a lot more complicated, because when we had one kid and I would tour and everything, like it was a squeeze, but it was like, all right, we can do this. You know, like
Yeah,
I'll be gone
yeah.
for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and then come back, and y'all will come out with me and all that stuff like that. And that's like, you know, you can do a flight solo with one baby, and that's like
Yeah.
feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he was born and I went to Asia and Australia for 2 weeks when he was 3 months old.
Oh.
And my daughter at the time was a year and a half. And it was just carnage, man. like I'm in Asia, I'm playing this tour, and I'm calling my wife, and she's just like, "Hey, we're good, everything's cool," but I can just hear the house is on fire behind her. Like everything is breaking down, and like I just felt so bad for like, okay, like I'm out here living my dream, having this great time, and my wife is just drowning because we have no family support in LA.
Yeah,
we childcare in LA is great, but also just insane. And like we both grew up, pretty close to. I grew up very close to extended family. Like everybody in my life grew up in Fayetteville, and my wife's family, she lived in Dallas, so it was a much bigger city. Like we just started feeling at the end of the year last year, like, okay, like maybe it is time for us to like take stock of like, what does the future look like? And those
are just kind of that's just kind of organically those conversations are coming up.
Yeah. Because I was on tour basically from July until the end of November last year. Like,
wow.
Off and on. I wasn't gone straight, but like I'd come back for a week here and then I'd be gone, and then a week there and I'd be gone. And it was just a lot. We got to the end of the year, and I released my album at the end of October, so it was like doing all the promo for that and everything. It was just a point where we were kind of like, hey, like, is this working? Is us being here working? Because for me, kind of what I've described earlier of like the way I work so much of the time is alone in a room with, an instrument and a laptop. Like I utilize the songwriting community of LA like so infrequently. I use it. I'll have a session with other people like 2 times a month, and that's great. Or I'll fly to Nashville for a week, once a quarter, and then the rest of the time I'm alone writing, finishing these songs that I'm working on. And so for me, it was just kind of like I can do that from anywhere, really, and still get just as much done if I'll, take a trip to LA every 6 or 8 weeks or whatever, or go to Nashville for a week here and there. And we'd be able to have more, family support for our kids. They get to be closer to their cousins because, my wife's family is super close by her, and then my family is close by. And the more we thought about it, we were just like, maybe this does make sense. And we were really honestly thinking about Nashville for a while because we were like, it's a bit more, family friendly, and it's, musically it would make a ton of sense. But, we were praying about it a lot, and we just felt really strong. In fact, my wife felt really strongly that she was like, I feel like we should move to Arkansas. And I was like, really? Why? That makes no sense. And then she was like, I don't know. I'm just praying about it, and I feel like God's like, Arkansas. And so I was, we've taken the last, 6 or 7 months talking about this ad nauseum and praying about it, and just ultimately felt a lot of peace about doing it. However, right now we're in this limbo period of like, we are in the process of selling our house in LA, and we don't know where we're going to land. So you're catching me at a very limbo period of time because we are like right now, luckily my parents, on their property, they have like their main house, and then they have this barn that's a fully like livable, it's basically a house. So they converted it into a house. So like we're able to post up in this barn on the same property as my parents. So we've just got like round the clock grandparents, which has been,
you're immediately benefiting from this
awesome
decision.
I don't know if that's going to be a long-term solution because I love
laugh
my parents.
When I see you, or like 10 years later, I'm like, "Where'd you on that movie?" Like, well, funny story.
Funny story. We haven't left.
Still really gauging the real estate around Fayetteville. It's been up and down and up and down and up.
Really living that rent-free life, but like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We may absolutely love it and buy a house here, or it may, it may just be
even
for
if it's
a
just
short
a little
stint.
break for a
Right.
minute. I mean,
Right.
I will say that I have 2 girls, and when we moved up to 2 kids, it was the biggest seismic shift in my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going from 0 to 1 was a shift, but 1 to 2 was huge.
It's so weird because like I feel like emotionally for me, going from 0 to 1 was so crazy. Like just your world flipped up. My world flipped upside down, and it was like I'll never, I will just never be the same person again. And so the second time around, emotionally, it was so much easier because I was like, all right, sweet. Like I'm already doing this, so now let's just do more of that. But then when the reality kicked in of like I'm on tour, I'm working again full time, and it's like, oh, this is a whole different animal with 2 kids.
Yeah, and I just wasn't expecting it. Maybe that was the thing.
I wasn't either.
You've never expected anything more than when you have your first.
Yeah.
And then when you have the second, you just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm like, well, I'm already doing, they're just going to fall right in line with like the pace that we already have. And then it's like.
No. Too, I mean, I don't know. I want to encourage what you've done. I think it's such a beautiful thing because I think, it's such a fine line that we all have to walk just as people and as dads and husbands. But I would say as guys who are like, have these careers and are entrepreneurs, I just have always felt this weird struggle of like, I don't know that my dream justifies putting weight on my children's shoulders. Like that's always been a really tricky thing for me. And I think there's a certain amount that they can withstand and be fine. I mean, that's not to say you can't do it. That's not at all what I'm saying. But
totally.
I just feel the push and pull of like, I decided to be a part of bringing them into this world. It was a great experience for me. And I feel like, to then look at them and be like, so now that you're here, a couple things, I've got all these things I want to do, and you're going to have to deal with those decisions. And they're kind of like, wait, what? And so
hold on.
I think it's just so honorable, and it's so inspiring, honestly. Like when you told me that when you were here last time, I thought, man, I just love those stories. And it's a real reminder to me too, honestly, of like how, being open to listening to your life, and listening to it's because I think if I'm not careful, I just kind of go, okay, this is the heading. That's where we're going. Everybody like get on the ship and let's take the winds and here we go. Mm-hmm. And I think it just shows a lot of maturity in, just like, just listening to your life for you guys to be like, I don't know, maybe we do something else. And then slowly as prayer does, you start feeling your heart change. You're like, this suddenly feels like a really good idea, and I think it'll benefit. I mean, y'all could have stayed in LA and the kids have been great, but I do think there's something really cool about being around so much family and them getting to, and I can't imagine, I have a feeling that in 5-6 months, when I've come up to just hang with y'all in your barn for a few weeks and us be best friends, I feel like, one of the things, whatever, just like, who's the new guy?
Hey, y'all don't mind Dave. He's just going to be here for a few months. He's fine.
He does have shirts, but they're still packed. He'll get them out.
He's going to wear them as pants, though. It's a weird thing. Don't ask where the middle hole goes. But like, I just feel like when we talk again about this, as you guys have, I just feel like your heart rate, is just going to slowly sort of settle into that life. So I had a friend that I wrote with last week, and his friend, he's had a lot of success as a country writer, but he and his family just moved back to Georgia, and they live kind of on the lake in this place where he grew up. And he was just like, man, it's just crazy how much I drive in and Nashville. He's like, I love it. I go and I write and it's great, but I can feel my BPM slowly raise. And he's like, it's fine. But like, man, when I pull back into the city where I live, this little town, it's like, I feel it's just like everything settles back down again, and I think there's something really cool about what y'all are doing and the intentionality, just thinking about it like you are is really inspiring.
Man, that is so the hope of what this is going to be. Because like you said, John, even if this is just for a break, like just a season while our kids are super young, like, because, my heaviest touring days are now. Like I'm in the thick of like, building up my touring business and I'm still kind of like going for it hard in that regard. So like, the dream is to like have a home base that feels like an oasis that we come back to and we can like, okay, we can just kind of breathe. And then when we go into life, it's like touring is crazy. Doing any career in entertainment is crazy in and of itself. And then to live in a place that is like another 10 times crazier just to walk your dog. Like that adds so much, I think, subliminal pressure, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, I'll tell you in 6 months when you come for a few months, because I'm 4 days into this, and I'm very excited to see how things play out. So
yeah. Well, too, just I always feel so much for. I mean, John and Amy are like this, but like we're just so lucky that we have family, and it's. I mean, we have both sets of grandparents are here in Nashville, have
amazing.
relocated, not because of us necessarily, but there was some money exchange. But they're here now. And man, I mean, it's just astounding how helpful it is. It's like, I know that everybody's like, duh, but it's like when you live it, it is. I mean, literally last night our kids spent the night with my mom and dad. And I'm like, it's just, we went on a date and watched TV way too late. And you just kind of get like a little like, okay, sanity is restored. And then you're so glad to see him, And so I just feel like, I feel for friends. I mean, again, John and Amy have to just slug through life. Their life is just a drudge.
So hard. I'd love to take the last kind of 2.5 hours that we have here to kind of expound on that. If you guys don't mind. Dude. Another thing that I would say, Jake, is because like Dave is saying, Amy and I, we don't have any family here. All our family is back in Indianapolis area. And we love it here. We love it here. But leaving now, making the move that you guys just did, for us now, the ages that our girls are, almost 12, almost 9, it's so much harder now. I mean, they have whole roots and community of people, as do we. But I mean, doing the move now when the kids are younger, it's so much easier.
How old were the girls? Girl, I guess.
Yeah, it was just Luca when we moved down.
Yeah, you had Livy here. That's right.
Yeah, and she had a couple boyfriends, nothing serious, so it was kind of easy at that time. They'd meet in Louisville, coffee.
Man, I just remember how hard that was for y'all. It was tough. Well, dude, Jake, you're the man. Thanks for hanging. We have well, let me say this. Actually, John and I are so bad at this. What I'm thinking about is there anything? Because we have a speed round coming up, so you need to do your stretches and get. But before we do that, I always forget to do that. John and I always laugh at this.
I know,
anything that we got to promote, like anything coming up. You got shows, you got music. What's happening?
I have a lot of new music. It's about to start coming out. Kind of parlaying all the way back to. I was releasing a song every month for 3 years, and then just did an album at the end of the year. Like, I loved that. I loved the process of it, but I kind of miss the run and gun lifestyle of like, all right, it's guerrilla warfare out here. Let's just go.
Let's go. Yeah.
Like, I've been writing. Pace of it.
I miss the pace. Yeah. I miss it. And like, it just, on a creative level, it just feels like, because I don't know, at least for me, creativity can sometimes feel, if it's unstructured, it can feel like a cloud, you know, and you're just in this what is life? And for me, I operate really well when I do put a deadline on myself and then announce it publicly. And I tell I announce it on like social media. I'm like, I am releasing a song in 3 weeks. The song is not done yet, but I'm going to do it. And like that puts the fire underneath me to just get it done.
Yeah.
And so I miss that. Yeah. And so all that to say, I've been writing a bunch of new music this spring and this summer, and I'm about to start rolling it out. So
we had one of those. It's funny that you said that, John, about the rights, because one of the reasons I saw Jake is we were, whenever that was a couple weeks ago, like me and a couple guys were writing, and it was like kind of going. It was a little slow, and then I don't know who got the text. Maybe I got it. Oh, from my publisher. She's like, "Hey, Jake Scott's in town. He heard y'all are getting together. Can he pop over?" And we were like, yeah, that'd be even better. I mean, Jake's awesome. Let's have him in. And I mean, it was like, I had like an hour and a half. Yeah. And so it was this hysterical, like I hadn't seen Jake in forever. So we're kind of, and it's two of the guys, and we're just trying to kind of quickly catch up.
Yeah, we're catching up.
And I mean, it was just, no planes were landing, maybe even were in the air at that point. And it was just kind of like, that's kind of cool. I don't know. You've never seen ideas going faster. It was just like, and finally I was like, I gotta go.
Y'all get out of my house, please.
So we had exactly that moment. Okay, so Jake, here's this is the speed round. This is, so, we always say speed in quotes because this is your podcast. So you get to go at the pace you want.
But it's my podcast. I'm taking over. Thanks, guys.
It is. Yeah. Starring. This is a feature act. We just call this podcast with features, just stay musically on. So, okay. So number one,
Okay.
Actually, John, I want you to ask this because this is always your favorite question.
No pressure, but this is my favorite question to ever ask.
Okay, I better not disappoint you.
What's your most wonderfully awful on-stage moment?
Oh man, I forget lyrics often, but there was a time like I took 3 attempts at the second verse of a song, and I was like, "Hold on, guys, I'm gonna get it." And then I like would come back and I said, "Hold on, I'm gonna get it." 3 strikes. I was like, "Let's just go to the chorus. How about that? Let's just go straight to the chorus."
You just skip right.
I just skipped it, and I was like sweating because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe these people paid tickets, and I'm forgetting the lyrics to these songs they love." So. That I don't even remember where I was. I think I've blocked that traumatic moment out of my memory.
It's just like the lyrics; it's not there anymore.
Because like you miss it one time,
Yeah.
then it's like, that's
kinda
funny.
cute. Yeah.
3 times in a row, it's like, come on, bro, this is your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. This is random. I remember I do that too. Anybody knows my music, come to my shows. They're like, "What do you mean? Why are you acting like that's not anything?" But I remember as like a kind of a core memory for me. I went to Atlanta Fest, which was like a huge CCM festival back in like. This is like the 90s, and it was awesome because it was like you go ride rides at Six Flags, Georgia all day in Atlanta, and then at night they'd kind of start the shows at around 3, and then it would end with like DC Talk or like Michael W. Smith or something. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Carmen. But I went and saw there was this vocalist. He was kind of like the Christian Michael Bolton, and his name was Michael English, and he could sing, bro. I think he was in the Gaither vocal band for a while, but I mean, he could sing. Like he was a singer. And I'd been like a couple of shows because I grew up in rural Mississippi, but like I'd never seen this. So he is singing a song in his tracks, and he's killing it because he's such a good, but he just forgot the lyrics. And I'd never seen that. I'm like 13, 14. I'm like, what's happening? And he was like,
and it's a track, which is
it's
great.
a track. So
There's
he's
no
like,
looping around.
and he did a great job. He was kind of like, I'm sorry, guys. Gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, let's get okay. Forgets it again. And I'm like, it just felt like, where am I? Like, is this a thing? Do people... Well, and then I remember this is the part of the memory that's so core to me. He had to ask somebody in the audience, does anybody like have the, because this is way before phones. He's like, somebody had a tape that they threw on stage, and he took the tape out, took the lyrics, and was like, all right, got it, start me over. What is it? I just remember it being like, my little brain was like, wait, is this real? People can forget lyrics? And I think that's probably
that
why
was the moment where you were like, I'm going to be a musician. Because in this occupation, you can forget how to do your job, and it's
you
still
don't have
fun.
to do your job, and they think it's cute.
They love it.
I am in. Okay, second question. 3 people you would love to have dinner with.
Dave Barnes.
Don't do that. I'll take my shirt off.
I think Chris Martin. I got to say John Mayer, because if I didn't, that'd be crazy. And this is super, super random. But I've always been a huge Bear Grylls fan.
Oh, love that.
I don't know. It's like how he lives his life.
You have sort of like a Bear Grylls vibe.
Oh, wow. I will take that.
You look rugged and sort of outdoorsy.
I'm so rugged. I grew up in Arkansas.
I was going to say, it comes with it. I assumed you were birthed outside when you said that.
I was. Yeah, no running water. It was crazy.
All right, what's the thing about LA that you're going to miss the most?
There's a magic in the air in LA that you just can't find anywhere else. It's like, this sounds like so cliche, but it really does feel like anything can happen at any time. Like you can walk into the most random place and it's like, oh my gosh, that's Will Ferrell. What? Like, where am I? And it's just so cool that everyone there and all the baristas and all the servers, it's like they're probably people out here pursuing acting or music or writing or something. Like everyone has this collective drive. I don't know. It's very energizing. I'm going to miss that.
I'm going to add an addendum. Do you have like a really cool LA story that's like one of your favorite like LA moments?
Oh man. I honestly think probably my coolest LA moment was when my first show at the Troubadour, which is like a super legend. Have probably both played the Troubadour. And like, it was my first tour, like proper tour, and I was lucky enough to sell out the Troubadour, and I felt like, for some reason, I felt like, okay, I belong here. Like I belong. Because LA, I'm sure Nashville feels like this too, but like for such a long time, I felt like I felt like an imposter
Yeah.
in LA,
Yeah.
you know, and you have this like, oh, I don't belong. Everyone here like doesn't like, you know, I'm not good enough to be here. But then when that moment happened and it was like, oh, this is kind of like a rite of passage in a way to being an artist in LA and being able to do that. Like that was super cool.
Wow, that was.
We back?
This has happened a couple of times. This is my favorite things. Is the first 3 seconds of that is my favorite moment in the podcast if it ever freezes, because it's like all you do is you see the story being told and it's like was probably, and I'm like, here we go.
He's stewing on it. Okay, where did I drop off? Where did I fall off?
I think literally at the very beginning of when you're about to tell the actual story. Oh, you told that Troubadour, and you're like,
Troubadour.
I finally belong here. I'm not an imposter.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. You nailed it.
I was ready for like
timing on that
and
phrase.
Johnny Depp jumped up with a piccolo flute and we played
It was
Inner Sandman.
I
was
remember
wild.
way back in the day, speaking of Johnny Depp, I played the Viper Room.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Viper Room still there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
I remember playing
I think
the
after
Viper
LA
Room.
burned to the ground like in Armageddon, the Viper Room will still be standing
still
with
be there.
Slash playing GNR out front.
But someone had told me that Johnny Depp like owns the Viper Room.
Oh, I don't know if that's
Which
true.
I don't even know if that's actually true, but that was just. But I remember being so naive, to get back to naivete. It's my first time in LA, like we're playing the Viper Room, and I'm like, the whole time I'm in the crowd, or I'm playing, I'm looking for Johnny Depp.
Is
I'm
Johnny
just
Depp
looking
here?
out, and I'm like,
Look for those
"It's
dark
silhouette.
eyes."
It looks like it could be Johnny Depp.
That's the thing I feel like about LA, and I promise we'll ask these last two questions. That was so fun when it's exactly what y'all said. It was this thing like every time I played there, I would have these unbelievably delusional dreams of like, I'm going to look out and, you know, Paul Simon is going to be staring at me. And as I'm packing up, he's going to go, hey, kid, can I talk to you? And he walks up and I'm like, Mr. Simon? And he's like, why don't you come to my place and party with all of your favorite Paul McCartney
Janet
is
Jackson
throwing
and I
a
are
party.
going back to the.
And we're starting a band. Yeah. Garfunkel just called and we need a drummer. And I'm like, you know, it was like that. But it's what you're saying, Jake. It really is that's in the air there. It's like
it is.
It felt like almost every show that I did in LA, there would be one person that was a random celeb that was just either like they heard it and kind of popped in for 5 minutes and left, like I never met him. But it was like there was always something you're like, gosh, who knows, man? Like who knows? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask the next question. If the world could listen to one Jake Scott song, which would it be?
Man. I feel like I have so many songs that showcase different things. I think probably my song Tuesdays.
That's a good song.
I think of all the songs I've written at this point, like that one seems like it just gets... I like it the longer I live with it, you know, and I can't say that for all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that one, like, yeah. I feel
It's
like
such a good payoff.
Thanks, man.
Stuck the landing on that.
It's me and
one.
Josh. That was
A good
old
chunk of the
Joshua
world
Kirk.
has listened to that stuff.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, 50 million people would agree.
Yeah. All right, so last question. If you wrote a book about being a dad, what would the title be?
Oh, wow. Probably that. That would be the title.
Oh, wow. That's a great answer.
That's it.
Oh,
That's
my
it.
God to be in a dad. Oh, I love that answer so much. And I just see it in quotes. Oh, wow. How to be a dad.
That's it. That's my book.
Dude, you are a legend. Thank you so much.
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
man.
And dude,
Good to chat
congrats.
with
I
you.
love the move. I love what
Thanks,
y'all are
man.
doing. I hope
Stay in the barn.
Yeah,
Don't just
Stay in the
pretend
barn.
that you're looking for houses.
Gosh,
Just stay in the barn.
Just stay there. I know, man. It makes all the sense in the world, but who knows? Who knows if we'll survive this? I love my parents, but being on the same property as my parents might not be very
I
sustainable.
like the
We'll see.
pop.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.